Hello. Yesterday we put down plaster cloth on the stream course, the stream bed, and the pond for the Polar Express layout. And today we're moving on to the next step, which is to use flex paste to totally seal it so that it will be impervious to liquids. And when we add realistic water, that water will stay where it's supposed to stay instead of just flowing all over the place. The flex paste goes on in a number of different ways. You can kind of trowel it on. You can use like a hobby stick of some kind, like an old popsicle stick kind of a thing to lay it down. But I'm using a paintbrush and painting it on. And that allows me to go back and forth over spots to get it thoroughly into the plaster cloth and try to plug up any holes so I don't leave openings that will subsequently be subject to leaking. The plaster cloth is dried thoroughly overnight, so it's a rigid shell as of this point, and the flex paste is going on quite easily. The flex paste gets down into the openings in the plaster cloth. I mentioned yesterday, it's like a cheesecloth that's been impregnated with plaster product, and the flex paste gets down into all of those little openings in the plaster cloth that have been left of that weren't filled by plaster itself. And as it does that, it will seal it totally into and make a hard waterproof shell that will hold in the realistic water when I'm ready to pour that. I'm putting it on fairly thick. This is like a first coat, and I may need to do a second coat. I'll see once I have a chance to get this coat completely dried and inspect it. If I'm seeing any little openings or holes through into the plaster cloth beneath it, then I'll need to do a second coat to go back and touch up all of those. And that's a very real possibility. It's just the nature of the product. The flex paste is pretty thick as it comes out of the can. You can see kind of on the paintbrush, it's a very thick appearing product, and it will not just automatically fill in all the little holes. It takes some pushing and forcing. You got to use a little bit of force on the paintbrush to get it down into those holes, but it will seal it with a little effort. One of the things I've learned is that I have a great talent for getting the flex paste on me, not just on the layout. So I'm wearing some clothes today that I will be able to get cleaned up pretty well if I do manage to get myself smeared with flex paste. It is a product that you can get out in the laundry, so it's not like a total disaster. You haven't destroyed your clothes if it gets on them, but I do have a habit of managing to back into it or lean into it accidentally, and as I do that, the result is that the flex paste ends up on me as well as on the train layout. So I'm wearing some old clothes today that I will be able to launder it out of if it gets into them. So that's basically what the process is. It's painting it on pretty thickly and going in both directions, at least in two directions, maybe in more in two directions, to get it to go down into the holes in the plaster cloth to form that waterproof, impervious shell that we want to get before we decide to approach painting. And that will be a later project. I'm going to let this dry thoroughly, and as I say, I may need to do a second coat in some places, because if I still see any little holes from the plaster cloth showing through it as I get through the first coat, and when I inspect it after it is thoroughly dried, then that means I'm going to need to do another coat to get those filled in completely. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next little while here. And rather than have you watch a video of the same thing over and over again, I'm going to sign off for a little while and finish up my chore here. And once I've got that thoroughly completed, and this is dried and inspected, and I've put on a second coat if need be, we'll get on to the next stage, which will be painting the bottom of the stream bed and the banks to look like we would see in a real stream bed. So I'm going to call it the end for this video. You've seen what I'm doing and how I'm doing it with the paintbrush, and that will just continue around the rest of the stream bed. I will use up quite a bit of flex paste in doing this. I had about 1 1/3 of the containers, and I'll probably use that first third up pretty quickly and then be on into a new container very soon. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting and informative. Please, I ask you to consider subscribing. Click the subscribe icon when it shows up in the upper right side of the screen, and also click on the thumbs up and like the video if you would below. That's a big boost for me as well. And then also share this with anyone that you know that might be interested in model train layouts. And finally, any comments or questions or suggestions you have, I look forward to receiving them. So thanks for watching.